Okay, I think we're on now. So,
Mhm.
uh, Mary Jo, I would like to first thank you for allowing me the opportunity to observe you. And so in this
My
poll
pleasure.
conference, I just want to discuss a few aspects of the lesson. Um,
Mhm.
give you an opportunity to share your thoughts and reflect on the lesson as well. And then we'll dive into the professional development plan, the personal plan that you've developed for your career. Okay. So, since you are very familiar with this science lesson, I think it's definitely most appropriate to ask, what do you think with this current class, and what I observed, what stood out the most to you?
Um, I think they were really motivated. You know, they like science and just the fact to get, to actually have hands-on kind
Hmm.
of things. Um, you and I were, talking at the time how I was going to ask them what the next step would be,
Hmm.
and I really thought they would instantly say, "Oh, we're going to."
Right.
Um, I don't, and they kind of missed that. They jumped over it, and so I had to guide them back to what the next steps would be, and that kind of made me realize that, like you said, I've done this unit so many times that I know all the connections, but I
Hmm.
really have to remember as kids go through it the first time, they may not be making all the connections between steps, and I'm going to have to make sure I build that in and um, not take for granted that they're going to know what the next steps would be.
Okay, great. Um, that's excellent reflection, and a great point to make. So, looking at that, despite the fact that um, you had to backtrack and use more questioning to help scaffold the students, how do you think overall the lesson went?
I think it went pretty well. Just the fact that they like the hands-on, and they were kind of into trying to figure out what the mystery powders were, and
Hmm.
yeah, so I think it went okay.
I agree. I agree. Okay, great. So, if you were to do this lesson again, which you probably will have an opportunity, so what changes
Yeah, oh
do
yeah.
you think you would make, considering even our pre-conference, and then also your own personal reflections?
Well, I liked your suggestions about having um you had kind of shared with me your graphic organizers, like, oh, that was just I wish I would have thought to do that a little bit ahead of time, and to have some of the vocabulary posted. I was glad that you gave me the ideas to pull up fizzing and some of those other things, because again, I kind of take for granted that they're gonna really know what all of that is.
Hmm.
um, I also, just talking with you made me realize there's a part in the book that talks about each of the known white powders and what they're used for. I really should have done that before. I really should have. And we ended up doing it after, but I was like, oh boy, I've got to always remember to do that first, because then they're familiar with the powders and what they are, not just a chemical name.
Right, right. Um, and I guess I have a question with reference to that. When you thought about them being familiar with the powders, um,
Hmm.
how do you think, or do you think it would have been helpful to introduce the common names of the powders?
Yeah,
Because I noticed that, yeah, they use more so the abbreviations, of the appropriate scientific names. Um,
yeah. Yeah, I think I should have done that for as part of that, because in that piece in the text, it talks about, then they just would have been more familiar with it overall, the chemical names and the common names. And I forget that not every kid, like, from for instance, a med, or might not have, if you don't cook, how do you know what baking soda is?
mhm.
I forget that not every kid knows what baking soda is, or not every kid has done a volcano with baking soda as the the catalyst for the foaming. And so just little things like that.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thanks. All right. Excellent. So now I kind of want to switch gears and focus on your personal professional development plan. And so one of the goals was to increase the proficiency scores in mathematics for students. Okay. And so just considering the goals that you have for mathematics and taking a look at your plan, I wanted to know exactly how you were going to progress monitor, or how did that take place last year? If it didn't take place, what do you want to do? How can you enhance this area?
Yeah, my colleagues and I talked about how we would do that next year, because I believe we're measuring it by the topic score. But if we truly want to have kids be getting more proficient topic scores as we go out through the year, because that's what we're kind of hoping, because they're you probably know with us, I don't know, they're just really challenging tests. And you'll be going along that they're, day by day, they're getting each lesson pretty well, and you think they are, and even they kind of are. Day by day, they'll do this, they get this lesson, and then the next day they get this lesson. But then by the time you get to the test and they're all mixed in, that's where they just flounder. So I myself, I'm pretty consistent with doing exit slips, so formative assessment every day.
Okay.
But I was thinking about maybe I need to, but that's what they're kind of good at. We're doing this lesson, and at the end of the lesson, they're good at getting that exit, and the next day. But maybe if I, every third day do a few together, because that's kind of where they, like in this, we just did topic 7 decimal computation.
Right.
And so when we're practicing subtraction decimal, they're getting it. And then when we practice multiplication decimals, then they're mostly getting it. But then by the time you get to the test, they're doing things like in multiplication, lining up the decimals, which you don't have to do, So I kind of feel like on the weight test, I should do a exit slips that have 2 skills that they have to do at the same time, rather than every day at one exit slip that's on that lesson. I think that'll help me see who's going to get mixed up during the test.
Right, exactly. Because I would say recycling the skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also being able to
up until the test, not just
right, exactly.
so isolated.
So you can distinguish. And I think another component maybe you can consider is, how could word problems, help aid in their practice? So I know when to line things up if I have a true understanding of why I'm using the skill.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So what supports, if any, would you like to see from the building leaders or instructional coaches, or from the district? What supports do you think need to be available, or what interventions? Are there enough interventions for mathematics? What would you like to see?
I feel like there are. Sometimes I have done some intervention kits, like do the math and those kind of things. But not very often is there an isolated skill like that you're just sure they, sure they missed, it's a little bit more mixed in, where I feel like I need to give them some foundational skills, but I just can't completely stop what they're doing in the classroom. I kind of have to mix the two.
Exactly.
I'm like last year, I just needed some flexibility. I didn't really want a rigid program like do the math where you start to finish, that's what you're doing. And I know Jen Schaefer was real supportive of that. Like there's this K-5 math resources kit. And I said, can I just something like that, so that we're working along in the curriculum, and then bang, I see a hole,
Right.
and so we go into that K-5 math resources, find a resource and work with them on that thing until they got it. Because
Mhm.
otherwise I just felt like I do one of those, do the math. It's pretty long. It's like weeks long. And then I don't know, you're just not, it's not very flexible, I guess. So I'm glad that they're allowing us to do things like that. I hope that continues, because I feel like I need that rather than where we have to pick like an intervention program, like with fractions or computation. I
Right.
just need it to be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, some versatility. That makes sense. That's good.
Yeah.
And just from my brief experience, working with Jen, I could see that, they're very supportive of you doing what's needed, for your student. That's going to be
Yeah.
good for you. So that's great.
Yeah.
Um,
And just the fact that you're offering to, work with some kids on, at that 2:30 time, that's going to be awesome, because I will too. And then if you will, I think that'll be a nice time to see if they're transferring.
right, right. Okay. Excellent. So think about our professional development plans. Um,
Mhm.
do you feel as if um, creating the plan challenges you to improve, learning outcomes? Does it personally, motivate you, or
It
what do you think?
does. I have to be,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, finish your question.
Oh, I was gonna say, or or does it feel as if it's just a task, to complete? Um, do you
Yeah.
find yourself
Yeah.
personally
I know
motivated
exactly what
by
you're
the
asking.
right?
Yeah. So I have to admit, like earlier in my career and under certain administrators, I have to admit that it was kind of like, okay, as a team, we often picked a team goal, because I usually have pretty strong teams that we're all wanting to collaborate on things. So that
Mhm.
always works for me. There's been some years where like, oh, let's just pick something easy. What would be easy to do? I've done that. But um, under Lori, I always feel like she's like, pick something meaningful, pick something that you really want, that your team wants to work on anyway, and then make that your goal. Don't try to make this an extra goal so that at the end of the year, you're like, oh yeah, what was our goal? You know,
Right.
so, I think we've all done that, but
Mhm.
I really feel fortunate that, Lori and some other administrators have been like, no, 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 pick a real goal that you're really going to do anyway. And,
Mhm.
so that's kind of how we've felt the last couple of years, is that, that math, uh, we were really working hard to try to raise our scores with a lot of kids and figure out how to do that. So it was like, no, let's make that our goal so we can actually use that as a way to measure and see if it's working.
Okay. Good. Yeah, we know administration can makes all the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you've got an administrator that really doesn't want a fluffy goal. They really want us to
Right.
work on something meaningful, that,
Right.
then that is motivating then.
Right. That's good. Great. Okay. Um, well, I'm not sure, but did you have any questions for me or any comments in relation to either the science lesson or just moving forward
Um,
with your professional plan? I know you had to make some
yeah,
changes.
no, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't think so. But I was going to mention to you, I do appreciate, the feedback that you gave me, because there's different styles. I don't know, I've taught 30, 40 years now, and I've had a lot of administrators
Right.
give a lot of questions, and there's different styles. And I've never really been there's some styles where they just script what you do and what you say, and then tell you which standards you've met. They don't really give you um, feedback or suggestions.
Right.
And I liked the way that you gave me feedback and feedback, what I did well, but also a few suggestions. And I just find that really helpful, because that's what I really do want. I want you know, when somebody comes in to watch part of a lesson, I really do want their feedback of, okay, as a extra person in the room and an observer, you know, what could I do to help the kids understand more? So I just liked your style. I thought it was really helpful for me.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean that.
Greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, well, I'm going to stop the recording for now.
Okay.